Greetings and welcome to the Thirsty Mage, the pub that's officially been serving up your RPG commentary for a full year. After the full 365 days, the keg hasn't gone dry yet and the lights are still on. I'm your host, David Lloyd, and tonight we've got our normal motley crew, minus one. And so the two gentlemen we have joining me tonight, one is the owner of NWR, but both are review editors, Mr. Neil Ranahan and Mr. Jordan Rudick.
Hey everybody. I feel like a disappointment celebrating the year anniversary of the Mage, and it's my second episode in a row that I'm not drinking beer. I'm just having water, because I'm not going to get into details, but I had an endoscopy today, because I might have heartburn or something along those lines. But anyway, I can't drink beer for like 24 hours. I'll be back in the saddle tomorrow.
I was debating whether I wanted to be referred to as young master or bro for the duration of the episode, and I feel like because Neil is officially the young master of the three of us here, I think he gets that title, and I'll just stick with bro.
So what sugary beverage does the bro have tonight?
Hey, come on, David, give me some credit here. No, you're absolutely right as usual. I found something special today. I went to get some groceries on my way home from work, and I found at the local Save on Foods there, they are selling this special Coca-Cola in these glass bottles, and it's not just like regular Coca-Cola. It's they have a not Georgia peach, just some kind of peach flavor. And then also a raspberry one. So I bought the raspberry one. It's a 4-pack. And it says, like, British Columbia raspberries. So I don't know if they're I guess they're trying to market it as raspberries that are from here. I get maybe this is a Coca-Cola you can only buy in BC. I have no idea. But anyway, so I had one earlier. I'm kind of finishing it now. Not bad. You know, I am a fan of the flavored Coca-Colas. I do like my my cherry Coke and my vanilla Coke.
How about orange vanilla Coke? Has anybody had that weird thing?
I haven't, but I would go for that.
It's all right.
Any flavored one. Is it? Yeah, like cream, kind of reminds me of a creamsicle or something like that, right?
Not as much as I'd expect. Like I was kind of hoping for more of that.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it feels like a weird mixture of like vanilla Coke and orange soda. That I wish it was more creamsicle-y in taste. It would probably be very good in like an ice cream float, though.
Now, is this a beverage that you found like in a bottle or can, or is it one of those ones you see at the movie theater where you kind of manufacture it from those big dispensers?
This is one of those things where I think there's a disparity between the United States and Canada. Cokes have like a big rollout, like it's a new flavor. So like it's okay. I mean it's I mean like I was watching some of the NCAA men's basketball tournament today, and they had a lot of commercials for orange vanilla Coke there. So like I've seen it around and I've tried it a couple times, but I don't know how far the rollout is. But I guess it hasn't.
Yeah,
we
don't have anything
yet.
like that. No, the closest we get there is all the Diet Cokes have different flavors now. Like there's like lime and cherry and lemon and all these different flavors of Diet Coke. I know. But in terms of like regular Coke, we don't even get vanilla Coke up here.
That's like my favorite.
I think cherry Coke sometimes.
My favorite
style of seasonal,
Coke
I think.
Vanilla Coke.
Yeah. You once in a blue moon you get vanilla Coke up here,
Blue
but
Moon
most of
isn't,
the time if I'm ever picking it up.
By Coke, I think.
What? Hold on, now I'm confused. I wanted to make a remark about Casey and how he's like prepping mentally for the release of Final Fantasy VII. That's why he's not here. It's like he couldn't do 2 episodes, or needed an episode off just to get ready for the next one. So that, if anyone's wondering where our -1 crew is, where he is right now, I think that's what it is.
Well, what I'm drinking tonight, since as usual I'm the only one drinking, is I started. I didn't listen back to, but I'm pretty sure I started the podcast drinking some Scotch ale from Gainsbourg. So I'm going back to the well with Gainsbourg, but I'm switching it up because it's almost spring, and I've got a Coulier Cafe, and this is an oatmeal porter. And I love the description that they give it. It's a symphony composed of 10 different malts, roasted coffee, dark chocolate, milk chocolate, and light smoke, resulting in a succulent harmony that resonates long after consuming.
All right. I was hoping that you would go for something borderline incomprehensible, since we are talking about Xenogears, and I think you did it.
Yeah. I had to stay on brand. I had to go with the most complicated drink that's out there. Yeah, exactly.
You went with a beer that has cafe or coffee in its name and ingredients. So yeah, I
was going to say if it really wanted to be like Xenogears, you would have had to have read like a 25-page book before actually being able to drink it.
Yeah, well, that's.
And then you'd have to keep on reading books periodically, like halfway through the beer, and then when you get to the end of the beer, you just like read the book, and then it'll be like, now take a quick sip, and be like, all right, and it'll be like, all right, go back to the book.
And since it's a Takahashi, that book would probably be like one of the Bibles.
Yeah. No, it's like the Bible,
that or
it's
philosophy.
the Bible through a funhouse mirror.
That's right.
But if the Bible ended with you killing God.
Yeah, so we started this podcast talking about the last game that Takahashi made, and we're starting off the year with the first game that Takahashi.
Well, not technically the first. I guess it's the first game he was the director of.
Yeah, the first game he wrote. Like he worked on Final Fantasy VI, and he worked on Chrono Trigger. He was mostly doing art actually before Xenogears. And
and wasn't Soraya Saga his wife? I mean, they met at Square, and I think they were they both artists? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they're both artists working together, and they actually wrote the story and the script for Xenogears together, and they pitched it to management to be the Final Fantasy VII, the new upcoming game, but. Management at Square just felt it was a little too dark and a little too complicated to be a Final Fantasy. So, and I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. So there's also there's some other stuff. So like I know like that story of how like Xenogears was like the basic story for it was a pitch for Final Fantasy VII. But apparently early on in development of Xenogears, it was that they were trying to hash it out as a Chrono Trigger sequel. But then got to a point where like, this isn't worth it. We're just going to do our own thing. And you can kind of see that like playing Xenogears, because we talked about it a little bit as we were playing it. There are totally some similarities between Final Fantasy VII and Xenogears, but I think that Xenogears probably would have made for a bad Final Fantasy VII. And also knowing the Chrono Trigger ties in mind, like, I think they made a good call in not making this a Chrono Trigger sequel. I think there's probably a lot of people that think that this maybe they would back Xenogears as a better Chrono Trigger sequel than Chrono Cross, but to those people, I say foo on you.
I would love to speak to someone who thinks that, because I mean I'm not as big a Chrono Cross fan as you, Neil, but I like Chrono Cross a lot better than I ended up liking Xenogears, at least so far. But we'll get there. I was just kind of imagining Takahashi pitching this as the first iteration or incarnation of Final Fantasy VII, and Sakaguchi just kind of like throwing his head back and laughing at him, like, oh, we're not going to that direction. You get the hell out of here. You go make your own game.
But like I mean, like, because if you think about, I mean, what Final Fantasy VI was going a little bit out of like the fantasy realm of things a little bit, because you did have mechs, but also you did have mechs, and what's a key part of Xenogears is mechs. Like I see why someone would be like, oh, they want to do a new Final Fantasy. This was what the last one was like. Here, I'm going to try to pitch this. Like, I think there is like a through line to how Xenogears could have been. I mean, there's also the reality that if Xenogears was Final Fantasy VII, it would actually have a budget. because that's one of the things that is super, super apparent when looking back at this game, that they made they had incredible ambition and did not have the money or support to make that come to life. Like it was not the A team, or probably even the B team at Square. It was Takahashi's first game, and I think the majority of his staff was young and less experienced, whereas the core team was off working on Final Fantasy VII.
The accountant on that one might have got fired by the end of that.
Yeah,
he did not budget the money out well.
I mean, that was probably Takahashi. Might have been at fault of that. I mean, I guess whoever the producer was, which, I mean, wouldn't that be Sakaguchi?
There's a lot of producers. Like, it was kind of your normal upper-ups, and Square all had their name on the credits, so it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a Square joint. Like, it was supported internally. It's just that I think because it did exist at the same time as Final Fantasy VII's development, Final Fantasy VII took priority for a good reason, it would turn out. And Xenogears got to a point where, like, I think there's the whole thing with so I guess also we're gonna spoil the game. It's a 2-disc game. They ostensibly, I believe, ran out of money when they finished making disc 1, and that's why the second disc is, for the most part, just dialogue and montage stuff that occasionally results in, like, battles. There is a dungeon that you basically are told what happens in the dungeon, and then you fight a boss. Like, it's really kind of dumb, but it also was a way to tell the full story that they wanted to tell, which you guys haven't reached the very end. I don't know if you looked ahead to see, like, what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like, I think the story is still strong. I think it's told in a very clumsy way, but, like, I think a lot of the stuff that they do is interesting. It's just that it's a really, like, age has not been kind to Xenogears, and I think some of that comes from the reality of the limited budget, and also that, like, they tried to do too much with too little.
Yeah, the complications in the story, like, I enjoy a good story. It's kind of up in my wheelhouse of the sci-fi nature of it, but there's just so many twists and turns, and so many names that are thrown around that it's just hard to keep track of what's going on. Like, there's no... I guess one of my biggest criticisms is it didn't stay in one... Like, it didn't really talk about one particular topic for any amount of time. It was just names thrown, like, every few minutes you're on to the next story beat, and then there's the next one, and then you're just getting fed so much information that's kind of, like, all over the place. Yeah,
like, this could have used a good editor. And I actually think even just thinking of the opening to this game, where, like, you're in that, I mean, I guess it's not necessarily idyllic town, but like Faye, like, has an idyllic, like, upbringing, as he just kind of, like, woke up in this town and then, like, made friends, and then, like, he ends up being called to a mech, and then gets in and then, like, blows up his town, as well as, like, his best friend and his, like, kind of teased love interest, and then he gets exiled from the town, which is so very Secret of Mana of this game. But also, it kind of reminded me of it's a lot stronger in the first Xenoblade, but the first Xenoblade kind of does a similar thing with the setup, where you're in one town, and then tragedy strikes, and then that's kind of when the story kicks off into high gear.
Well, you could even go earlier than that, and, like, the intro movie has no bearing on, like, the first, 30 hours of the game?
Yeah, like, the intro movie, like, I played this game, like, I mean, it was, like, 20 years ago, pretty much. I saw the intro movie, I'm like, what does this have to do with anything?
Like, it doesn't, it's almost like it's showing the end of the game first.
Yeah.
And you've gone, and it was funny because I went back and watched it after my playthrough, having forgotten what even happened in the intro movie, and then looking back and thinking, oh yeah, that I remember that. Like, what the hell? Like, it had nothing to do with anything.
I feel like I've had so many moments like that in my... I've played 15 or 20 hours of the game, and I don't have a lot of recollections about what exactly is happening. Like there's not all these huge events in the narrative that stick with me, and I think it's this jumping around and just far too much dialogue that kind of bogs the experience down, and you get kind of complacent with trying to remember the details. Like I'm almost feeling like I just want to skip ahead and get to the next part, see what happens next. But it's always no, stop and read and listen to these details that may or may not be important to the story or may not be interesting for the characters. But there's no way to skip the dialogue. You just kind of have to go through it. It's I found that made it very hard for me to digest the story or to really kind of bond with it or reconcile with it, something like that.
Well, and a lot of the stuff they show you is teases for things that happen later.
Yeah, like the puzzle makes sense. It just doesn't. It takes forever to get to what the puzzle means.
That's right. Yeah, and by the time you start remembering back to what happened to put the puzzle together, you've forgotten a lot of the stuff that's happened. Like, how many times did they tease different origins of Satan, like who he was actually working with and where he was from and everything, and then trying to keep a track of like, okay, who's on whose team and what's going on, and then there's just so many names thrown around that I really had to go back and read up on. Okay, like there's this country's helping this country and this country's helping this country, and then there's this other group that's connected to the one country, but they're not really.
And then there's the two floating cities in the sky, and we're going to mention them, but you're not going to get there until 20 hours.
That's a very Takahashi thing to do. Just cities floating in the sky. That, but it is something that like I played this around the same era that I played, like games like Chrono Cross and Final Fantasy VII and 9. I had this realization as we're gearing up for Final Fantasy VII coming to Switch, which we're 5 days away from. The last time I played Final Fantasy VII all the way through was probably 1999 or 2000. I have not gotten past Midgar, getting out of Midgar in that game since 19 years ago, at least.
But that's a huge part of the game, right? Midgar is a very sizable. It's most of the first
third of the game. I guess it's like probably 10 to 15 hours at most. And that's probably like a 30, 40 hour game. Depending on what your level of completion is. But I can still recall a lot of what happens in the part of the game that I haven't played in 19 years. Whereas Xenogears, which is a game that I 100% played through after Final Fantasy VII, I barely remembered a damn specific moment. And it's weird because it's like I had a very positive experience with this game when I played it when I was younger, and I think that there's interesting things done with the battle system. The mech stuff is really fun. The sprite animation on top of the backgrounds is really sharp and cool. Like there's so much incredible detail in those sprite animations, and it's even to this day it's cool to watch. And then you try to make sense of the 3D environments that you're exploring. It is very difficult, and the camera's terrible. Which I would just kind of lose where I was a lot. But I don't want to just dump on this game for the entirety of this episode, because I think that I think there are cool things that it does, but I think that this does not hold up.
No.
At all.
Well, we could focus on.
We could start with some positive things first, right? Yeah. I think there's a bunch of stuff I enjoyed.
I enjoyed the battle system. I mean,
yeah, me too.
The one thing, I guess, to me, the mixing of being in a mech and being out, I thought was pretty neat. Like it really isn't that a whole lot different because you're still doing like the combination presses. So like when you're just a normal person, I guess it's just like the energy, whereas when you're in the mech, it's fuel. But I mean, essentially it's the same thing. You've got like a light, medium, and strong attack. But it was nice to have that mix up because it felt fresh. And being in the mech, it was, you felt more powerful. So
the way the mechs work as well is really neat. That your health and your fuel go down, and you can't replenish them, by using items or anything like that. Like you have to either go and get repaired, like go fuel up again, or you can use the charge ability to bring back some of your fuel, but there's a lot of tension created with the mech fights in that you might go and fight 5 consecutive battles, and if you blow all your fuel on the first 2, like you go into the booster mode and you're wasting all this fuel trying to go faster, you might not have the resources you need to win one of the final battles. And there's a lot of times where you're fighting consecutive fights that you won't know about. So you do have to be really conservative and mindful of what attacks you're using when, and what your damage looks like. And I don't know, it's a cool kind of trade-off system, I suppose. Like I could see it being frustrating for some people, like that you don't know how many battles you're going to fight and how you should do it exactly. But I always felt like when I was fighting as the mechs, I should kind of anticipate there might be multiple fights here. So I don't want to go and waste everything on the first one if I think there's going to be a stronger opponent later.
Well, they do a good job of putting, like, before those, because there's at least 2 or 3 that I can remember off the top of my head. And I just remember before each one, there's a save point, but then there's also a repair bot to both upgrade and reboost all your fuel, so that if you do go in and you screw up and you die, then you're not being punished, because you're basically just being brought back to where you were before, right before the fight, and then you have that option of upgrading if you need to. I remember I think it was the second or third one where the group, I guess the Gebler, it was like the Gebler 5 the second time around. I didn't upgrade my gear before going into that battle, and I got just whooped by the second guy. and then I went back in, and it was funny, I didn't even realize the repair bot was there the first time. I just went back and died, and I was like, well, now what am I supposed to do? I'm going to get murdered by the second guy. And then that's where I noticed the repair bot, and it actually made the battle easy. I
remember you're talking about that in the Slack chat, David. And it's one of those cool things about the game that it puts save points kind of in strategic areas where if you see one, you should probably use it because something bad is coming next. And with the mech fighting, it's different. They don't really level up as much as the characters do. It really is about upgrading your equipment, right? Like making sure you have the highest number of hit points you can, upgrading your fuel, your armor, like equipping the different pieces of tech that you pick up or you win from battles. Like it's a neat thing that you always have to be kind of in top condition for your mech, or you can have very easy fights or very difficult ones if you don't kind of follow that path.
Yeah, the other thing I thought was funny was that they had a weapon slot for a bunch of characters, but like 20 hours or so in, I still don't have weapons for half my characters. I'm just like, is it there just to troll me or what? Because like, I think Ellie's the only one that I have with weapons right now, like that's actually utilizing the weapon slot.
Yeah, the weapons and like even the armor for characters seems kind of just kind of there because it's an RPG.
Yeah.
But doesn't seem all that utilized all that well. Like you could spend half the game, there's bullets in these stores, but there's no character you have that can shoot bullets. So why are you selling me bullets 5 hours before I actually pick up a character that has a gun? Like it does weird things like that. Yeah. Or I go to 10 shops in a row and they all sell whips or chains for Bart, and Bart's not in my party. Like, why are you only selling me this? You know I can't use it, game. Like I'm not going to have him in my party at this point. So the shop kind of item selection and weapons and upgrading for at least the human characters or for the outside of the mechs, it didn't seem all that thought out or all that. Like I never looked forward to going to a new town and I'm going to upgrade all my equipment. This is going to be great. Yes, for the mechs you do that, but for the characters outside the mechs, it's just like, all this equipment that I have better gear or no one can use. This is kind of useless going to the shop.
I was always wary of spending the money because I'm like, well, are these characters coming back? Am I going to just spend my money to upgrade them all and then like find out Bart dies or something? Like I have no idea.
And the mech equipment's really expensive. Like you could very easily be in a position where you spend all your money on stuff or item like potions and stuff, and then you try to buy like the newest engine for your gear, and you don't have enough money. You got to go and grind a bit, or you might even be in a situation where you can't grind and you got to sell all your stuff in your inventory.
Well, that's the other funny thing about the mech too, is that when you're upgrading the armor, there's like a small like reimbursement you get for the old armor.
I did like that a lot. Actually, it does that automatically. Yeah. I wish every game did that. Like just auto calculated it for you. That's perfect. I think. Yeah. Really clever system there.
One of the other things that I think all of us enjoyed was that the music was terrific.
Is really good. It's not it's really not good. Masuda's best soundtrack. That is Chrono Cross.
No.
But it's superb.
Yeah, there's one of the things I noticed that I liked was I think it was like the battle theme, where there's like a music, but then there's like an audio sample of, it's like somebody talking very faintly, but it sounds like robotic.
Yeah, there's a bunch of scenes that play music where you hear those kind of sampled voices. Yeah. And I was always trying to listen very closely and discern, what are they actually saying? I have no idea. No, it does, yeah. It sounded like robotic. Yeah. It sounded like they were speaking through like a broken microphone or something like that. You couldn't really hear. Reminded me of like, going through a drive-through fast food place and the box is kind of squawking at you and you have no idea what they're actually saying, But yeah, the music's really good. I think you're right, Neil. I don't think it's up there with Chrono Cross or Chrono Trigger. It's close to his work on Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I'd probably put Chronicles 2 just a little bit ahead, but it is classic Mitsuda. It's got the the Celtic influence to it, yeah. And apparently around the time when the game came out, he also put out a remixed version of the soundtrack, and kind of that was kind of a separate production he did. I want to kind of, after listening to a bunch of the tracks here, I want to go back and see if I can find that remix album that he made, because I think there is a lot of good on here. It's just a really solid soundtrack, top to bottom. There's not a lot of tracks that I didn't enjoy. I think it all fits the game pretty well.
Did a good job of setting the mood in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, it adds like gravitas and like drama to certain scenes that I might not have picked up on the cue, because if you're not really closely reading the dialogue, you might not know exactly what's happening, or if you're at one of the many points in the story where it's very convoluted, the music can kind of help you pick up what the emotion of the scene is supposed to be. So his soundtrack adds a lot to even just understanding basically what's happening in the game.
Anybody, do you guys any other things that stick out that you particularly enjoyed?
I know we were talking a little bit about the art style, and I do like it. I especially liked the look of the town areas. I didn't like navigating them necessarily, but I liked the way they looked. I mean, I like, especially inside the houses, it was really detailed and bright, and they felt really warm. Like I liked the inside of the buildings. I thought that those had a really cool presentation and style to them, and I was always happy. You can kind of explore and find random items around, and I did that a fair bit, especially early on, just kind of like exploring every house and seeing what they looked like and how they were different. I thought that was something that stood out to me visually.
I like, with exploring in general wasn't that much fun to me. Which, I mean, I think like they tried with the whole compass there and everything, but like I just felt like a mini map would have been preferable. But I guess one of the things that also stood out to me is, while I think that the story is needlessly convoluted, I think that there is a good through line in that story. I just think it's overcomplicated with trying to tell 4 other stories at the same time. And like you talking about the towns made me think of the opening town, and how you kind of start looking at that painting that Faye is working on, and then that kind of ties into the story later, and it's a solid example of something that this game does really well, which is set things up and pay them off down the line. But to what David was saying earlier, I think so many things are discussed that it's hard to pick out all of those moments. It's like I almost need like a pop-up video version of this game in order to get through it. And one thing that like I kind of forgot about and was reminded Because I guess maybe close to halfway through, and then didn't really feel like continuing my replay of this game. So then I kind of caught myself up on the story just to refresh my mind. What I think is hilarious how this ends, and it's Xenogears episode 5.
Yeah.
It's basically like, we're making Star Wars, bros. Like, here, we're gonna go back and we're gonna tell all these stories of all these different time periods with Abel and shit. That they're like, we teased you, but don't worry, we're going back. And then that never happened.
You know, that's a perfect kind of or it kind of epitomizes the overambition of the game, right? I think the game does try to do too much in a lot of areas. You know, maybe, oh yeah, okay, we're not going to call you Final Fantasy VII, and maybe there's a chip on Takahashi's shoulder. You know, like this is going to be, it's supposed to be his magnum opus, right? It's supposed to be the title that sets him apart from all his other all the other people at Square, right? He's going to make a name for himself here, and you have all these big, huge ideas, right? All these set pieces, and it's just one of those funny things that happens to games that deal with religion and the Bible and philosophy, is that they often aim so high, and they rarely kind of meet all those expectations, I think. And I feel like that's Xenoblade or Xenogears in a nutshell for me. It's a game that it tries so hard to force this story on you and all these complicated ideas that it wants to pay off, but it misses out on kind of the moment to moment goodness that you get from other Final Fantasy games or Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, where those games have standout moments and you think, oh wow, this moment is so epic. But in Xenogears, those moments are cut short by the rush back to dialogue, the rush back to minutes and minutes of exposition that fill in all these details if you read them closely, but it still doesn't mean that anything is really happening. People are talking about things happening, but you don't see them actually happen. You don't participate in a lot of the events. Or if you do participate in the events, afterwards it's this big, huge recap about what happened, and it's another 15 minutes of reading. Mm. And I think it really breaks up the pace and really hurts the flow of the game, the over-reliance on written dialogue.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know what Square management thought of it, because they obviously didn't think much of it, because Takahashi left like shortly after Xenogears due to creative differences. And it was obvious that he wanted to continue building on what he started, and I'm assuming that Square had other things in mind. And then, it's funny that you talk about the dialogue in that, because the first game from Takahashi when he started Monolith was Xenosaga. And the knock against it was that it was about 90% cutscenes and dialogue.
Yeah.
With a few battles mixed in.
So he goes and starts his own company, and he's like, I'm going to take that thing that, maybe Square pushed me out for, or, made me, kind of compelled him to leave. I'm just going to make a game that's entirely that.
He's just doubling
It's
down.
Almost doubling down. Yeah. It's exactly what it is. And I don't know, was Xenosaga seen as or do people look on that game fondly? I don't hear people really talk about it.
It was equally baffling. Because there were 3 episodes. And
it was supposed to be 5.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be 5 for both?
Also,
yeah.
Let's look at Takahashi's trajectory here, just like a little more broadly. He was at Square, worked on very famous RPGs, made Xenogears, which we're here being like, what a disaster. And then he left, formed his own company, got some funding from Namco. And then after doing that for a couple years, started, made Xenosaga games that I think were Xbox PS2. Then he made Baten Kaitos for GameCube. And then, look, they got bought by Nintendo. Like, things worked out pretty well for Takahashi here.
Oh yeah,
they did, but I don't think that he was making really great games until they got bought by Nintendo. Like, I don't really remember Baiten Katos, I'm not going to pronounce it right, but I don't really remember it that well. I know that I think there is a cult following to that game for sure, and people want to see it come back. But it really isn't until Xenoblade Chronicles
Disaster
1
Day
comes
of
out,
Crisis, thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, I'll grant you that one. It didn't have Xeno in the title, so I forgot about it.
Well, Xenosaga didn't sell very well. I mean, part of it is when you're using German Nietzsche quotes in the subtitle.
Yes,
I don't imagine that's pushing product all that quickly.
Well, just wait till Xenoblade Chronicles 3, David. Then you'll see it's coming back.
Once Nintendo unleashes him for his full creativity, then we're really gonna see what his grand vision is, I guess.
That's it. I feel like if 13-year-old Jordan had a PlayStation 1 and had Xenogears, I think I really would have enjoyed it back then, actually. And I can understand why the game was seen well critically. I think in that time period, you were maybe more open to games like this that had a lot of dialogue and, were trying new things and, had mech fights or mech fights in them, right? And the combat, the music, there's a lot of good things in this game. But in 2019, going back and playing it, it doesn't hold up very well. I don't think it's very player friendly. It certainly is much more of a game for RPG enthusiasts, and I know we are those, but we're also very discerning gamers as well, right? Like we've played a lot, we've seen a lot, and so we can look at this game and say, here are all the flaws it has, and it kind of brings it down and makes it so we don't really want to get through it. I mean, after putting in 20 hours, I feel like I've seen enough, I've done enough with this game to have a solid opinion about it. It's not one of those where, once you get to the the second disc, it really improves, because we know it doesn't. We know that it's the second disc is kind of the throwaway one. So I feel like if I were younger and I came to this game when it first released, I would have a much more favorable impression. Maybe even now, because I would have that nostalgia. But I have no nostalgia for this game. I don't know anything about it, or I didn't know much about it coming in. I just knew that it's a Xeno game, and I like the recent ones. But going back, I can. I don't have enough of that history with the game to enjoy it now.
Well, part of the allure back then would have been it's like the new hotness. It's like the 3D environments and the music, because it was chiptunes before that, right? So now we're getting into better music, and so I can see a lot of the appeal back then probably would have been that it's something new that. So trying to go back to it now. But I mean, that's the case with a lot of the PS1 era games, is that it was like a great time for RPGs and all these exciting new things were happening. And then even now, like I kind of want to go back to the ones I missed, but after playing Xenogears, I'm like,
like
maybe not, right? Like,
I wish, and I think like it's going to be a tall order for this to happen, but. Even if I think that Final Fantasy IX was clumsy in its implementation of some of those quality of life upgrades, I wish we could see, like, even if you just do it in a PS1 emulator, it wouldn't be perfect, but have the ability to like speed up or something like that. Like that. I mean, I guess there's probably PS1 emulators that you can probably do that.
Oh, you mean with like the way that Square's porting them now, with the like take away the random encounters and speed up the.
Because I've been talking to people about Final Fantasy VII, and a thing that, like, as I've kind of expressed, that I'm pretty stoked to replay this game, especially even more so with the realization that I haven't seen after the first 10 hours in almost 20 years, and that just seems like a really weird experience, is that, like, I'm really excited to replay this game, but people have been telling me that, like, oh no, like, it's better left in your memory. And I'm like, I don't know about that, like, but also, I think if I was playing the original PlayStation 1 version, that's probably the case. Part of my excitement for replaying Final Fantasy VII is that you kind of have the ability to play it with less impediments, less artifacts of age, by having the ability to speed up and to, just instant limit break. I think there's one that will give you all your health back. There's one that will have instant limit break, and I think then you have like a 3 times speed.
And probably a no random.
Yeah. I think there's a no random.
They kept that one in too.
No random encounters as well, and like having those kind of things for these older games that are bogged down by load times, that are slower in spots, that don't have the quicker pace of some modern games, like I think that would be very helpful for going back to replaying these games, because I'll admit, replaying Xenogears was a slog, and it's more so because it didn't have the niceties of modern gaming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like I don't think it's a bad game. I just think it's a game that didn't age that well.
Mm-hmm. Like, I was playing Final Fantasy IX last year, before we did our Final Fantasy kind of series recap on the Mage, and I was playing that on PS3, and I didn't have those special features like turbo mode and no random encounters and stuff. And when I went back and played Final Fantasy IX on Switch, and I had those quality of life additions, like my impression or my feeling about the game really became a lot more positive. I was kind of lukewarm on it, and I went after finishing the Switch version. I really enjoyed that experience. And man, Xenogears would really benefit from something like that, because there's so much of the game that the fact that you can't speed up the dialogue is such a huge oversight. Like the text goes really slowly, and what's hilarious is during battles it speeds up to a good pace. Like, any dialogue that happens in a battle, the text goes across the screen really fast, and I'm like, oh man, if it were that fast during like regular exposition scenes, we'd probably be okay. But for whatever reason, the dialogue, the type of the letters appearing on the screen goes to like half speed whenever it was just two characters talking to each other outside of a battle. I have no idea what does that, but the fact that in a mid to late 90s game you weren't able to fast forward dialogue, I don't understand that. I mean, maybe it's a system limitation or something, but it's I know it sounds like a minor thing, but it's one of those things that makes a game so much more accessible when you can skip past parts, or maybe I read pretty fast, right? Like I'm finished reading the words long before the dialogue part is even over, and I just wish that I could skip through, generate all the message, read it, go to the next one, and just decrease the amount of time I'm spending reading, and just get me back to the parts of the game that I am enjoying, like the combat, like the music, like the not exploration, but just again walking through the town, seeing the buildings. I did enjoy those things.
Yeah, the other thing that I found too in this playthrough is how much more enjoyable playing like an RPG in particular is on Switch, because I played most of the Xenogears on my Vita, and at the time, like, I had played Chrono Cross, and so it wasn't an overly long game, so I didn't notice it then. But when I'm putting in like 20 hours into Xenogears, I really noticed how uncomfortable it is to play on the Vita for extended periods of time. So like anything over an hour, like my thumbs are starting to cramp because the D-pad's pretty small, and the buttons, the shape buttons on the right are pretty small, and then I feel like my hands are really close together and so I tried to throw, like, so I pulled out my PS3 and hooked it up, and there is a way to transfer your saves over, like, kind of on the fly between the Vita and the PS3, but it's not a quick procedure, and it's a bit irritating, so I didn't find myself doing that as much. So I just noticed, like, with our Final Fantasy IX playthrough, that it's just, the comfort factor does make a difference. Like, even like, because I didn't use some of those modern comfort. Yeah. I didn't use any of the modern comforts when I played. Like, I didn't use the random encounter. I didn't use the speed up or anything. I just played it the regular way. But just being on the Switch, like, I might play for an hour in handheld mode, and then if I'm in a scene where maybe I want to see something a little bit bigger, I'll throw it in the dock. Or if I just want to play with the Pro Controller, because a lot of times the Pro Controller just feels nicer, so I can just flip it back and forth. And I think that made a big difference in my enjoyment of the game as well.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any question that playing games on Switch, it's just such an awesome experience, especially compared to using the Vita, right? Like, I really liked the Vita when it first came out, because it was the only way to play a lot of these PS1 games, and it still is. You can't play Final Fantasy Tactics on Switch yet, Oh, please make that happen. But, maybe more of if these Square games especially are selling well, like Final Fantasy 9, again, it was at the top of the charts for a while. I bet you Final Fantasy 7 is going to be up there as well. They're probably going to be doing quite well. So maybe we will see more of these PlayStation 1 games get slightly updated ports and put on Switch. Everyone seems to be porting all these different games to Switch. We just got the announcement that Cuphead is coming to Switch, which I don't think is a huge surprise, but I am thrilled about that. And so yeah, let's see more PlayStation 1 RPGs on Switch with some quality of life features on a bigger screen, the ability to play handheld or docked. Let me speed up the battles, speed up the dialogue. Let me take away the random encounters. Like, it'd be so awesome to go back to some of the games we were mentioning just before the episode started, right? Like, it's not I don't think Jade Cocoon's it's not a Square game, but just these RPGs that we might remember the names of, or we dabbled in, maybe never finished, or finished 20 years ago or something like that. It'd be awesome to go back to some of these.
Yeah, I'd like to see Konami throw Suikoden on 1 and 2, maybe in a package deal.
Yeah, again, that the only way to play those games, at least, or an easy way to play them, is on Vita, right? I have Suikoden 1 and 2 on Vita, and yeah, I would definitely go through them again if they came to Switch with a few updates to them.
One of the other throwbacks that we did with this playthrough that I wanted to ask you two gentlemen, because you're the two test bunnies on this, is you guys picked up the old style player's guide. Mm-hmm. The big, thick, paper-based...
So I wound up not using it that much, only because I played a bunch of this game on breaks at work. So it's not like I wasn't like, oh, let me carry this big book around with me and break it out at my desk. So that was why, like, it was cool thumbing through it, but I didn't use it so much when I was playing the game. It's next to my I'm looking over at it right now. It's standing up next to my Chrono Cross strategy guide and my Beautiful Joe strategy guide.
So you didn't want your boss walking by your desk and asking, "What are you up to? What are you up to today, Neil?"
Yeah, are you working on killing God?
Just getting inspiration.
So, the I don't remember what company made your strategy guide, Neil. I've got the Brady Games strategy guide. You have the same one, okay. Yeah, so I used it pretty extensively for the first 15 hours or so of the game. I was trying to use this instead of any online or GameFAQ walkthroughs. I ended up switching over for maybe the last 5 or 6 hours I spent with the game to using just a walkthrough on my phone, because there's something so nice about... you've got a lit up screen. Your phone is always with you. Again, it's not a heavy book by any means, but you need a light source. I like playing games in the dark in my office, and I don't want to leave the light on just so I can read my Xenogears strategy guide when I can just look at GameFAQs, which is a lot more condensed. It's really easy to navigate. Again, it's always at your fingertips, right, with your cell phone. I don't think it's a great strategy guide compared to some of the ones I remember from the past, but that just could be a little bit of nostalgia talking as well. It's got a lot of huge boxes filled with all the items and all the cost of everything that you can buy, and there's not a lot of nice images or artwork in the strategy guide. Just there's a lot of words and numbers that take up space.
If there was any like behind the scenes stuff or production notes or artwork or anything like that, or is it just kind of to the point?
No, it's to the point. There's none of that kind of neat extra stuff that you might want to see. Yeah, I mean, I remember the Chrono Trigger player's guide that Nintendo put out with that game. It had cool Toriyama designs for the characters, and they used those artwork, the artwork you didn't always see in the game, but you'd see like in the manual and on the box cover and stuff. It had those kind of throughout the guide. You don't get as much of that here. There's a little bit of artwork in the beginning of the guide where it talks about the characters, but as soon as it gets to like kind of the walkthrough part, it's it's just kind of it's not a great presentation to it. A lot of boxes and I don't think there's a lot of style to it.
Well, and Xenogears was pretty linear for the most part too. Like it wasn't necessarily like the last player's guide I purchased was as thick as a phone book because it was for Skyrim.
Yeah, I've got that one. I've got that one too.
And the Skyrim one, like it's just literally just walk around and do stuff. Complete open world. So to me, like, I used it just to find stuff that I might have missed. Whereas with Xenogears, it's like there wasn't really like the equipment. There wasn't a whole lot of hidden stuff. You didn't really have to stay on top of your equipment too much. So I mean, if I had purchased that guide, I Yeah, I would have preferred that to have some other extra stuff, since the guide itself wasn't necessarily all that helpful.
One of the things you hope from a guide is that if there are secret treasures or shortcuts and things like that, it tells you about them. But this one doesn't always do that. Like if there's a bunch of treasures in a dungeon that you want to pick up, it tells you how to get from A to B, but it doesn't always tell you, oh, but make sure to turn right here to grab this potion, or turn left here to get this new armor. It doesn't really do that. It's much more straightforward, and like you said, maybe playing to that linearity of the game, but it's not the reason I buy a strategy guide. At least the reason why I bought it for this was just to kind of check them out. But I wish it kind of took you off the beaten path when there were opportunities to do that. It doesn't really though. It is very much a walkthrough on how to progress the game, not how to find all the little things that you might be missing. It kind of just says, be sure to look thoroughly in this area to find those treasures, like without telling you where they are or how to get to them, And it's probably due to the fact that there's no mini map. It doesn't also have a lot of images showing you exactly where you need to go. They're just kind of take screenshots, but there's no kind of paths or maps or anything. Like it would be really nice if there were maps in this strategy guide that you kind of follow, and it would show you where the treasures are. I mean, even GameFAQs uses very simple maps on the online walkthroughs that you look through, but the strategy guide is kind of missing that.
Well, and the maps can be nice too, just as artwork. In the guide too.
I like to see where I am and what a dungeon layout looks like before you go into it or while you're exploring it. It's nice to have that visual in your head, but the game just has the compass, and the strategy guide doesn't give you anything. So you're left really kind of imagining what the dungeon layout is, and that it kind of sucks.
Well, my son has been getting into wanting to get into game. I mean, he's young, but his aspiration is to get into game development. So. We picked up some great big monster chart paper so that he could design levels and stuff. So cool. So I brought up some images of the Final Fantasy 1 dungeons, and to see them laid out is just obviously I'm a Final Fantasy freak, so to see the dungeons laid out in this one great big picture was just to me that is the art.
Mm-hmm. If you and your son are interested in that kind of stuff, David, I think Jeremy Parrish, who we know from Retronauts, he did some artwork where he was kind of mapping out old, the original Metroid, kind of drawing out what the map of that game would look like. Because I don't think the game itself has a map built in, and I think he might have done that for Castlevania as well. So he's done kind of screen by screen maps that are pretty visually detailed and neat to look at. So that might be something your son might want to take a look at too.
And it reminds me of the
hand-drawn map poster of the original Metroid.
That's right.
Well, and it reminds me of the old Nintendo Powers too, where they would show you a level going across the page sort of thing. So it's So I mean, if I'm looking to purchase guides, those are the sort of things I'd like to see.
Yeah, those were definitely the highlights for me as well from those old guides, is kind of seeing what physical areas looked like from a different point of view. And just kind of imagining where you were, and just having that sense of location, I think, was really important, or it made those guides feel really useful. But yeah, just showing the treasures and showing the different paths and stuff like that. I really like that. I think there's something about when I was younger, in high school or younger, and using these strategy guides, and how again, this was all you had. You either didn't have the internet or you weren't well versed enough in it, and so you had a book and you were happy to kind of look through a book, and that was all you had to get through it. So you could kind of rely on that. But now there's all these different ways of getting this information. How to get through Xenogears. There's probably 20 different guides just on GameFAQs alone, in addition to probably dozens of other websites about how to go through the game, that you can kind of pick and choose which site or which source presents the information in the way that you like it the best. And I certainly don't think that this strategy guide is the best way to look at it in 2019. Maybe back when the game came out, this was probably one of the better ways to go through it, or if you wanted a walkthrough, this would do. But yeah, well, just kind of comparing it to the other ones you can get to now, it's not as good.
I think I ended up having to use like 3 or 4 different sites because every time it seemed like I pick one and I go and then it would just end. It was like, well, here's the first like 10 hours, and then they just forgot to do the rest.
Yeah. They all kind of wrote the guides in the same way that we played the game this playthrough.
That's right. You could see where each person gave up. For if someone was kind of doing, like, we've kind of been in this PS1 making the rounds the last few weeks. Would you guys recommend Xenogears to someone who's looking to play the classics on PS1, or would this be a skip for you guys?
For me, it's probably a skip for now until we got a better version of the game. Like if they came out and did an enhanced port, I'm not even talking about a remaster or a remake. Like just add a few quality of life features to make the game more accessible. I really, again, and I know I've talked about the previous episodes, like the accessibility of games is so important to me now as a father and with so many other things going on that I can't keep my attention on something that is 20 minutes of dialogue that I cannot skip, and then 5 minutes of gameplay, and back to 15 minutes of dialogue. I don't have the mind. I don't have the state of mind or the mental capacity for that anymore. Like I said earlier, like, yeah, if I was 13 or 14 or 15, I didn't have other things to think about. I was, school was whatever, you're hanging out with friends, but there's nothing serious in your life. Your life is just to kind of get through, and eventually become an adult, just enjoy your time while it's there, while you're young. And yeah, I enjoyed that time, playing 5 to 8 hour sessions of RPGs on weekends. And okay, that was great. But now I don't have that luxury anymore. So I just don't think it's a game that I can recommend these days until something changes. I don't think it's bad, but I think there are enough kind of negative elements to it that it's not a recommendation for me.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, like, even like 13, 14, 15-year-olds now who do have the time, they're probably playing something new. And there's
something better.
Yeah.
There's something better. There's something more accessible to them. There's something that appeals to them more now, right?
Yeah. Well, even Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is not like there's some similarities in the story.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, like I'd say that Takahashi definitely has a style of story that he likes to tell. Because I think he's told it multiple times. Just like there's a lot of weird religious philosophical themes, a lot of things of being at war with God. I'd really love to talk to him about religion.
Well, and it's funny too because when they're talking about the Xeno Saga being kind of like a redo or redo over, and joking about how he did it over as close as he could without getting sued by Square.
Yeah.
and the result is a game that's 90% cutscenes. Yeah. So,
well, that to me though, that's like he's got a story to tell. Like he's got something in his mind that he's trying to get out there, and he feels important enough that he's tried it multiple times.
Yeah, and Nintendo funds
of all these games.
Stuff. Yeah.
Of all these Xeno games and other things that he's worked on, I mean, I still think that the height of his storytelling has been Xenoblade Chronicles, the first one. I think it tells a really compelling story about the two giants that people live on, and this struggle with the environment and different creatures and things like that. Like I think Xenoblade Chronicles had a really good story. I do think he's kind of hit his stride with these last few games though. Like you can see that he's developing as a game creator. That I know he's been doing this for a while now. Obviously, it's 20 years between Xenogears and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but there's still those hallmarks of his writing, of his themes and character design. But I think in terms of gameplay and just the ability to kind of hold attention and maybe make it a little bit more modern, the last two games, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Torna, they really can be very compelling games to different people. And yeah, they're fun. I think they're in a lot of ways they're really fun to play. And they're not bogged down by the forced dialogue and forced story that Xenogears, in the way that Xenogears is. There can be a lot of cutscenes in the Xenoblade games, but I think there's a lot more action and bigger set pieces and events and kind of ways to make you feel emotion that Xenogears doesn't really have.
Well, I think he must have, like, when you compare this to Chronicles 2, I think he, like you said, I think he's learned what was missing from those ones, because Chronicles 2 did have those big moments. There was tons of moments that were impactful and memorable that didn't exist in Xenogears. And then even Chronicles 2, like, I mean, you weren't dropping and picking up party members every 15 minutes like Xenogears, but there was still a lot of information coming and going in Chronicles 2. Like, it was complicated too, and there was a lot of jumping, but it was all paced in a way that you were retaining everything as you were going along and building as you were getting near the end. And the characters of Chronicles 2 just were much more memorable than Xenogears. So yeah, like I think he's just, because maybe sticking with the same themes and ideas have just allowed him to really hone the message and kind of, I don't know, just make it, like, obviously, like I said, he's got that story or message that he wants to get across, and I think with each iteration it just seems to be more clear and concise.
Well, with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, like he's taken a game that it's basically 2 to 3 times the length of Xenogears, but still managed to make it feel like it has good pacing and good flow, and you do feel compelled to get to the end of that game. I obviously there's concerns about fan service and character design. I totally hear those, but just in terms of raw, like, gameplay and narrative beats that are compelling, I think he's really hit. Again, I think it's probably the pinnacle of what he's done so far. And I am really eager to see his next game. I always am going to be, since I started playing, since I played the first Xenoblade Chronicles game. Like, I think there's something about the world creation and the character, who the characters are, and the kind of emotional moments you get with them that you don't see in a lot of other, especially Japanese role-playing games today. It does feel a little bit more forced in other games, but here I do genuinely feel and empathize with the characters that he's creating.
Yeah, you can't be. I mean, if we're just looking at the timeline of existing games that they've done, we can't be that far off of something else from Monolith.
Well, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was the end of 2017, right? December 2017.
Yeah.
So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we at least saw something maybe at E3 or the end of this year, like a teaser for something next year. I think it doesn't look like we're going to get an enhanced port, the port of Xenoblade Chronicles X to Switch. So that probably means that they're working on the next thing. Aren't there teasers out there floating around about something? We saw some concept art.
There are quotes from Takahashi saying that, or at least, or maybe some kind of, I don't know if it's a rumor or a direct quote or whatever, but something about how, like, you could hear the new Monolith game be announced in 2019.
Okay, that's cool.
And yeah, and
we saw there's artwork for it, right? Or there's some kind of teaser image that relates it to being more of a fantasy game as opposed to a sci-fi one, I thought. Okay.
I think that's just concept art that came from someone at Monolith or something like that.
I think it would be interesting to see them go in a different direction, right? Like all the Xeno games have been very sci-fi focused, so it'd be cool to see what they could do with a more fantasy world.
Unless Takahashi's, don't change me, man.
Yeah. This is what I want to do.
I'm going to put mechs in it, and you're going to like it.
David, if you don't let him do what he wants, he's going to start making mobile games, and then you're really going to hate it.
Yeah. Oh, if he wants to get in my bad books, that's all he has to do.
That's right, yeah. Well, we're all still holding out that Sakaguchi comes back to make a console game. I don't see it happen. I don't see it happening.
Not holding my breath on that one.
No, for sure. There was one other little thing gripe I have about Xenogears. Not really related to what we're talking about, but just the funny thing about how the animated or the anime cutscenes that you see, like you see a bunch of them in the first 2 or 3 hours of the game, and then there's like none of them for the next 12 hours of the game. I don't know what gives, right? Like I get it, the budget, and that sucks because I actually really liked that element that part of the story would be told through these animated cutscenes. And I like watching anime, and I like seeing anime cutscenes in a game, and so I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna hook me, and then I'm waiting and waiting. I'm like, where the hell did they go? And then, of course, thinking back on it, they always say we're cutting things because of this financial situation.
Well, even the ones,
it looks like there's a pretty decent one at the end of the game, but
even the ones that they had mid game, they were pretty short. Because I remember, I think there was one.
They're very short.
There was one in the forest when he's talking to Ellie, which I thought was hilarious because it just repeated the exact same conversation that happened right before it in sprite form. And I'm like, okay, guys, like one or the other, pick one. Like,
I hope you're not going to do this the whole game, like where I have to read something and then you're going to say it back to me like I'm an idiot.
I was just like, this must be really important because now I have to see it again.
Yeah, just in case you missed it the first time, the 20 words of dialogue, we're gonna read them for you now. Read them out loud.
But I mean, it's funny too, though. I didn't mind the anime that was there. I thought was well done. Like that intro scene was impressive.
The voice acting wasn't bad either.
Nope. Yeah, I liked those things. I was hoping to see more of them. So I was just disappointed that I get 60-70% of the way through the game and that you really don't see those much at all after that beginning part.
Well, and it's funny to go that route after Final Fantasy VII too, but obviously it was a budget thing. Like it would have been cheaper to.
The timeline it's not necessarily after Final Fantasy VII. I think it's concurrent, right?
Yeah. I guess the development would have been at the same time.
I think, what did it come over early 99?
This one was 90. Well, in the West, it was late
98.
Yeah, late 98. It was in Japan, early
October
98
or something.
Yeah.
They were 6 to 9 months apart. I think something like that.
Yeah, February and October 98.
Yeah. So it would have been made probably during Final Fantasy VII and maybe and some 8. I would imagine there would be some crossover there too. But like you say, the A teams would have been doing 7 and 8. That would have been the focus. And then these guys would have been working on theirs.
I mean, I think one of the best things about Xenogears, and maybe a reason to return to it, is just the fact that this is kind of where all of this started. Like all of these, the more recent games, which just got really good and I really enjoy, they all kind of started with this. And everyone does have to get their start somewhere, and it hasn't aged well, but it is cool to see some of these ideas kind of starting to take root in the first game, and kind of just seeing what has carried forward into the Xenoblade series, which I think are quite popular with RPG players now. So it's interesting to see where it all started, kind of the genesis of the series, and see what they've cut out, or what things have been removed or maybe didn't work out. Even in the Xenosaga games, I'd like to have a look at those as well and just figure out, okay, what did you try differently in this series of games that you've either kept or maybe didn't want to use in the Xenoblade games?
Yeah.
So are we going to do Saga Frontier next?
I've
never played it. Is that another PS1 game?
It's actually Romancing Saga 2, which is on sale on Switch as we speak. It's in that line.
No.
I was just looking at that today,
actually. Kawazu game. Saga Frontier is just like the Square game that came out in between Final Fantasy VII and Xenogears.
Oh, I see.
It was basically like after Final Fantasy VII lit the world aflame. Then they're like, hey, American fans, here's a really hard to get into RPG. Enjoy.
Well, with Final Fantasy VII coming out in a few days, I feel like it's going to be one of those breaking points of I'm either going to be done with PS1 games for a while, or it'll re-energize me in PS1. Yeah. Like it's one way or another. Like I'm either going high or low. Like there's no in between.
I suppose we could do something crazy and play a Nintendo RPG, like a actual like that originally came to a Nintendo console. I mean. Yeah, I don't know. That we might lose half of our listenership if that happens. Everyone's on
like
the
PS1
Final
train.
Final
Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, right?
There you go. Well, that's coming to Switch this year, right? So
wasn't it? What happened to that?
We'll play that.
That was supposed to come out like soon. Like I think early 2019. There's not even a date.
Yeah.
Yeah,
weird. I don't think it's a date. Did they say summer or something? What did they say, spring or summer when it first got announced? I didn't even know.
I recall it being earlier. I don't remember.
I thought they said earlier spring. I thought those like they used one of those two terms because I thought it was going to be earlier on too. Unless they just wanted to wait until the Final Fantasy 7 and 9 and 10 and 12 and all that came out first, but it kind of seems funny because you'd almost think it would just be kind of in with the rest, like somewhere in the middle or something.
It seems like the Japanese release, it seems like there wasn't a window.
Okay.
I thought there was a window, but...
Huh. Well, I never played that on GameCube, so I'm up for it.
After Final Fantasy 12, after 12 comes out, we won't have an upcoming Final Fantasy game. So maybe they're waiting till this. We have to know that a Final Fantasy game is coming to Switch this year. After that, so maybe after 12 comes out, or sometime in April, we'll find out a little bit more about what's next. Or if these Final Fantasy games have been selling well for them, and I think they have been and will be, or will. I wouldn't be surprised to see Square announce, another set of titles coming. Like maybe a Final Fantasy collection where they put 1 to 3 together, or 4, 5, and 6 together. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. Now that we have Final Fantasy 7 on Switch, I really do think that a lot of doors have opened here. Like that is something that I didn't think I would ever see, that seeing that game on Nintendo console. So hell, let's go. Maybe they'll localize Seiken Densetsu 3. Like, maybe we'll get that collection. I don't know. Like, we're living in this realm of anything Squaresoft is possible now. So, yeah, I'm eager. I'm eager to see.
All right. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts on before we put a bow on the first episode of Year 2?
I should play Torna eventually. That's what this kind of reminded me that I should do.
You should play it. You should play it, especially considering you don't have that fondness that David and I do for Chronicles 2. You might really get into Torna.
Yeah.
You have to let me know when you. Maybe I'll pick it up and play it at the same time if you decide to.
All right.
I don't know what got in my craw about Torna, but when it was announced, I was just meh. And I think that was at the exact same time I was like going bananas over Chronicles 2. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see Torna as more Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's a different enough beast that you can kind of just enjoy them as separate entities. And it's not like if you liked this one, you'll like this, or if you hated this, you'll hate this. It's not like that. There's, like I said, there's enough difference that you can have different opinions about both. Maybe I do.
Maybe subconsciously, I just said if there's no Rex or Pyra, then why bother?
Yeah. Should it's true. You're not a Mithra fan there, David?
No, I'm more of a Pyra.
Not as such. Fair enough. Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I wonder if Neil, you made the mistake of bringing up Akitoshi Kawatsu. Maybe we should make it our 2019, one of our 2019 goals to finish to do an episode on a Kawatsu game. Like I want to do something crazy. Like I want to go back and play like Final Fantasy Legend, like one of those first games on Game Boy, right? 1, 2, or 3. Like
Alliance Alive is a Kawatsu game, isn't it?
In name or not in name in style, I think, but I don't know that he actually made it.
No, he's not. It is in style.
Yeah.
What is he up to?
It's that same battle system where you kind of, the more you do something, you get stronger, right? Like that he popularized in the Saga series. Popularized is probably too strong. That he utilized in the Saga series. Yeah, it's something he made. It's certainly attached to him.
Yeah,
but
I forgot about Scarlet Grace was the last. Scarlet Grace is out on Switch in Japan.
Is that Romancing Saga 3?
No,
or is that a different one?
That is a...
Because Saga 3 is also coming to Switch soon, I think.
He's got a whole lot of special thanks for stuff lately.
This is a new game. It came out on Vita in 2016, then it came out on
yes,
Switch,
that's right,
PS4, Windows, Android, and iOS in 2018.
Which one's that?
Saga Scarlet Grace, which is the last game that Akitoshi Kawazu worked on.
Yeah, I could see that coming over if they're bringing Saga Romantic Saga 2 and 3 to Switch. I don't know why they wouldn't bring that one, localize that one as well.
No, he was a producer on Crystal Chronicles.
Yeah,
Kawazu.
Yeah.
Oh, so we can count that one then.
I think he might have I don't know his full story, but I think that after Sakaguchi left, I think he might have taken over more of a production role.
Yeah, I think his
that makes sense.
Last director role before that would have before Scarlet Grace would have been, looks like Saga Frontier.
Yeah. I mean, he's basically he did Final Fantasy 2 and then Saga games.
Yeah.
Saga games, yeah. Well, Final Fantasy 2 is a Saga game. That was the beginning of the series, and the Legend 1, 2, and 3 are all Saga games. Everything he's done has been that same system. So I don't know. The reason why I brought it up, we should do an episode on it, just again to force me to try to complete one of those damn games, because I always so fascinated by them, but
force you or punish us.
Yeah, we all suffer together on the podcast, David. You know that.
I mean, I'll say it here as far as my sacrilege thing when it comes to especially Square RPGs. I don't like Secret of Mana at all. I tried. I was excited for it to be on the Super Nintendo Classic so I could give it another honest shake. Got a couple hours into it. I just don't like that game.
No, I don't like it.
I don't have the fondness for it that other people do. I think it's a gorgeous game, and the music is awesome.
Great music and everything. It's weird because I played there were a bunch of Mana games that came out on the Game Boy Advance, and I played a bunch of those. And I played the Mana game that was Final Fantasy Adventure. I also, and actually, Adventure. I did beat a Kawazu game because I forget which Final Fantasy Legend I had. I think it was the first one, but I beat that when I was little. I had no idea what was happening.
Nice.
I would go to my local library and find walkthroughs online in 1995.
Yeah, playing that game as a kid, my God, I feel for you, man. What the hell are you even doing? It's probably a 15-hour game, and you could put 100 hours in the game just trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So many crazy systems.
It's a wonder I still like RPGs.
Yeah, no kidding. That is trial by fire.
That was I think the first RPG that was wholly mine. I had a friend down the road who had Final Fantasy on NES, and then I got Dragon Warrior on NES.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the Kawazu games are so different from those, man. They're so obtuse and so all these crazy intricate systems that you have no knowledge about how they work. I'm just fascinated by all those systems and trying to figure out the math and the numbers involved, and if you do this happens. I think that stuff is fascinating, but I wish the games were so damn inaccessible.
I mean, even just spiritually, Kawazu games, you have The Alliance Alive and The Legend of Legacy. I kind of wish The Legend of Legacy was the one that would be being ported to Switch, because
I'm with you there.
The Legend of Legacy,
I would go back to that.
I think I summed it up very well in my review of The Legend of Legacy when it came out on 3DS in 2014. I think that game is flawed, but I think it has a lot of good things going for it. I don't like The Alliance Alive. I don't know if that's a good game. But The Legend of Legacy is an interesting but flawed game.
It's interesting that they chose Alliance Alive to bring over. I wonder if it's just because it's the most recent one. That it's kind of it's closer to everyone's frame of mind or something like that. Everyone's kind of got it top of mind.
Yeah, they might have. I'm guessing the sales probably weren't great because it was when the 3DS was on life support.
Yeah.
So maybe their attitude was, it didn't sell great, but is it because we put it out on 3DS and not Switch? And this is their way of seeing if that was the case or not.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to sell great.
I mean, it's also...
it just wasn't a good game.
I mean, it's weird. We could go on a while for this. We're seeing, Atlas, NIS America, and Xseed kind of have almost localization wars to an extent. Because Atlas brought over The Alliance Alive, and now NIS America's bringing it out on Switch. And then we even had Trails of the the Trails series, which I've never played, but I've heard it's great and would love for it to come to Switch. That was an XC joint,
me too.
And now NIS America is bringing that over to PS4.
Yeah, that's why I always got confused, because they keep switching publishers and who's bringing stuff to the West. Like, I played the first Trails of Cold Steel on my Vita, actually, and it's a good game. Pretty long, and it might be a little bit... it's one of those games where if you kind of do everything perfectly, follow the steps, talk to all the people, do those little side things, you kind of get like a better ending or better result at the end. So you very kind of walk-through intensive, or really benefits from having a walkthrough if you want to kind of get a really satisfying conclusion to it. I haven't played the second or third ones, and then I played the first Trails in the Sky game, so it's kind of those two Trails series. And yeah, I'd be so thrilled if either or both came to Switch. I think they're really solid turn-based RPGs that we would really enjoy talking about here.
Yeah, and it just on the localization, it was funny because the Caligula Effect, the original one on Vita, was published by Atlas, and the Overdose edition is being published by NIS. So
it's like all these Atlas games that were released earlier now.
And NIS is picking up the scraps.
Them up. Yeah, they are. Well, maybe it's not costing them a lot to do that, and they're seeing that. If they put it on Switch, it will sell inevitably, because almost everything sells on Switch, right? So,
yeah. All right. Well, we could probably go on for a long time if we allow ourselves. So maybe we should. I just want to end the episode though, since it is the beginning of the year, to go back to something that's on brand for me. And that is, when we were looking up this the Final Fantasy Legend stuff, I happened to come across a bunch of different listings of video game websites that ranked the Final Fantasies from best to worst. And I just want to point out that Final Fantasy VIII was number one on one websites.
Oh, what is that? Is that where you work now?
No, it's
David. When www.davidlloydfinalfantasy.com should not have a list that you were referring to here. I don't think. Yeah, how much are you paying for that website per year?
Unless I found a way to hack into Rock Paper Shotgun's listing of their ranking of the Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
Whoever came up with that list is my spiritual brother, apparently.
You can get a lot of free blogs these days, and you just call them websites.
Yeah, I've been working for years on building up a reputation on Wikipedia to allow myself to hack into all of the Final Fantasy articles so that I can rewrite history in the way I see it.
David, I believe you found that legitimate list with 8 at the top, but what you're not telling us is that the next games on that list are, in second place, Final Fantasy II, in third place, Final Fantasy 13, fourth place,
I don't want to tell you what number 2 is. I don't want to tell you what number 2 is on this list.
Wait.
I know you don't.
Wait, no.
It's going to disprove the fact you put 8 at the top.
So how is this, like, everything ranked, or...
This is the American, so it starts off with 4 and like everything from 4 and after, basically.
Okay.
Excluding 5, so it's like 4, 6, and up.
Okay. It doesn't have 1 and 2 on it.
No.
Okay. No. All right. So let's try to, Jordan. We can figure this out.
Yes, we can.
All right.
So we're not happy about second place.
So I'm gonna say 10-2. Is it only mainline?
Yes. No, they have 10-2 in there, but it's not 10-2.
Is it just 10? Is the second one?
Is the second?
That would have been my guess.
Yeah.
All right. So what do we
invalidated?
Now they go back
number
to
3.
I agree.
What's your take, and then we'll guess it.
I agree with it.
6.
Okay. 6, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh no, you're gonna be really mad when you find out where 6 ended up.
Oh god, fuck this list.
Oh no, David, this person is not someone we should be trusting with their list here.
Is 7 in third place?
Yeah.
Okay. Fourth is
that's reasonable.
Fourth is 9.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's someone who grew up with the PlayStation 1 RPGs.
Yeah.
Like that's. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, let's get real. Like, my list it's the top 2 are the Super Nintendo RPGs. Like, and 3 of my top 4 right now are the Super Nintendo RPGs, because that was my introduction to Final Fantasy.
But the thing is, like, a lot of lists have 6 in the top 2 and 4 in the top 5. I think those are pretty common.
Well,
right?
there's 9. There's 9 here, and 7 of them named 6 as the first.
Yeah, I mean,
not the one I'm looking at.
6 is factually the best Final Fantasy. You can have opinions that sway it otherwise, but if you were to look at dollars to donuts, what is, compare every aspect of the game, 6 is the purest form of Final Fantasy.
It was 6 and 9 got the majority of the number ones.
Weird.
There, a lot of people like 9 the best. I don't understand it. I see that a lot, and every time I do, I'm like, I know you people are out there. I just it's just I don't get it.
While we're just rambling about Final Fantasy, since this is apparently just what the show has become, I did start. I beat Garland in Final Fantasy Origin, or whatever the Game Boy Advance one is. I found a Game Boy Advance, charged up an SP.
Dawn of Souls. Nice.
Yeah, and I started playing that one.
Very good.
You know what else was on Dawn of Souls? Final Fantasy 2, a Kawasu joint.
All right, so that's the version we all have to play is Final Fantasy 2, the Dawn of Souls collection version. Oh man, yeah, I had that. I was so excited about that cartridge because that was going to be my first chance, and a lot of people's first chance in the West to play Final Fantasy 2. And oh my god, I was so disappointed. I was crushed by that.
I was able to look at my old save files, and I did, I beat Final Fantasy 1, put a good number of hours into it. Final Fantasy 2, there's a save 2 hours in. And I looked at that and
I don't even know if I got that far.
Memories of oh yeah, that was, I did not enjoy myself.
No, it's so bad. Yeah, it's just really rough.
Yeah, but I went pretty standard. I went fighter, thief, white mage, black mage.
Yep. That's the standard party.
It's going to be something I'll probably do in the background, but I just I wanted to find it. I found my Game Boy Advance, found my copy of the game, and
nice.
I think I like that more than Final Fantasy 9.
That's an interesting take. I think there's a lot of people that would disagree with you. I might not be one of them.
Not the NES version.
Yeah, no, I know. There are other versions of that game.
Oh, I better wrap this up before you convince me to go pick up go to my local retro store and pick up that plus a GBA.
I'm just gonna. David. I want that website of the guy with 8 and 10 as the top 2 Final Fantasies, so I can send him some hateful Twitter comments or something.
Track him down on.
I mean, 8 I can understand. I have bagged on David for his love of Final Fantasy VIII a lot, but 8 I think does a lot of cool things. I'm actually curious in my. I don't really like 9 as much as I remembered. I'm curious to see what I would think about 8 now. But I have good memories of playing Final Fantasy VIII. I think Final Fantasy X is a trash fire.
Yeah, 10. Yeah, you're right, Neil. 10 in the second spot might be worse than 8 in the first spot. It's pretty. I don't think there's any reason.
I was talking to a friend who did not remember what Final Fantasy game he played, and I just yelled Blitzball, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I played that one."
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
Well, you'll be happy to learn you'll have to yell at a couple different people, and I was surprised to learn that the list was made last year.
Why?
Where is 15 on that list? I think 15's way better than 10, and I don't even think 15's a great game.
It's number 5.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Likes the
SNES are at the bottom.
Yeah, that's not right.
X2,
not right.
X2 is the very bottom, and then it's followed by the SNES. Both. Can't agree with that, I'm afraid. Especially since.
No.
Where did they put 13? Oh, they didn't even list 13. That makes sense.
That's a good thing. Yeah. I don't want to end on this. I don't want to end the podcast on that. Us talking about this terrible ranking list here of Final Fantasy games. So I don't know what should our listeners expect in the near future, David? What are we going to?
Well, why don't we talk about? That is next. That's for sure.
We're all so excited about that.
Maybe
4 days away.
I'll do undercover research at PAX East 2019, and
Yay.
I did not come up with this plan before, but I can come on the Mage and give you all the straight poop about any RPG news from PAX East 2019.
Sweet.
Yeah, it'd be fun to do. We've done a lot of Square stuff. It'd be nice to get an indie in there.
Humorously,
I think we especially should at Final Fantasy VII.
Looking at our schedule for PAX East 2019, here's some of the RPGs that I'll be seeing: Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy 10-2, and Dragon Quest Builders 2.
Well,
I don't know. I actually don't know. I'm trying to think of if there's any indies that I know of that have RPGs, but I'll find out, and then maybe I'll spend some time on the next episode talking about it.
I do have one that you can track down that might be there, and they just announced they're coming to Switch this summer, and that's Mutant Year Zero.
Mm-hmm. Because I think I probably just ignored them if I saw them show up at PAX East. I'll see if the company's going to be there, because they might be.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name. Funcom, I think, or the bearded there's like the developer and the publisher are different. But yeah, if you happen to see that, it's kind of like a gritty Mario Rabbids.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it, but
yeah, me too.
Well, I've played it on PC. It's excellent. It's more challenging than Mario Rabbids, that's for sure. But it's excellent. I really enjoyed it. So there's a good spot to end on.
Cool.
We're going to try to track down a fantastic RPG in PAX.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the PAX always has a lot of cool games from lesser known devs and even ones that we do know about bringing games to Switch. So there might be some RPGs that have come out that maybe flew under people's radar that might be coming to Switch this year. So
or that Overland that we saw in the Direct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
too.
I don't know if that company will be there. I know they were at PAX South because I remember watching someone play Overland. It'd be like, be cool if that came to Switch.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of a little like more basic Wasteland.
Yeah. I'm glancing at our list to see if there's anything RPG wise. No, nothing that's leaping out. I think there's a couple strategy RPGs that might be there, but yeah.
Well, when you're walking through the alleys, just keep an eye out. Keep an eye out. Great. All right. Well, that's perfect place to wrap it up before I go back into that list and really get you all mad. So, so yeah, make sure to check out. We'll have the Final Fantasy VII review up on NintendoWorldReport.com. Our next episode, more than likely, will be a review of the Final Fantasy VII port on Switch. So we're all very, very thrilled to be playing that, and we'll have lots to talk about on the next episode. Until then, like I said, check us out on NintendoWorldReport.com, and we will talk to everyone next time.
Bye.
Bye.